Week 5 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few running backs I looked at off the wire this week. The first back, Woody Marks of the Houston Texans. Woody Marks, he's been mentioned over the last couple weeks as a potential add because he already had that passing downs role locked up over there in Houston, where Nick Chubb, obviously not really a receiver out of the backfield, and Marks, a young rookie that's shown he could catch the football out of the backfield. But week 4 was his breakout game versus the Tennessee Titans, and that won a 17 carries, 69 rush yards, a touchdown, added 4 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. And D'Amico Ryan says he excited what he saw from Woody Marks, and the touches are going to continue to go up from Woody Marks. So they're 1-3 on the year. Still no news when Joe Mixon's going to come back, when that question was asked as well to D'Amico Ryans. And at this part of his career, Nick Chubb, with those bad injuries and Father Time catching up in terms of age as well, I think Woody Marks is going to be the running back here, getting anywhere from 15, 20 touches a game. I know he's a smaller back, but we've seen smaller backs in the league go out there and have an impact, like a Devon Achane. He's played really well over the last couple seasons. Alvin Kamara, throughout his career, he's been a solid running back. So Woody Marks, I think, could be decent for this Houston Texan team. And like I said, that he's a dual threat as well out of the backfield. He definitely can help owners in PPR leagues. Next running back, Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So now Bucky Irvin undergoing an MRI, and it might not be good news for Bucky Irvin. And now Rachaad White could step right in and be the running back. So White only out there in 60% of fantasy leagues. Last couple weeks, he really hasn't done much. Week 3 versus the Jets, 5 carries, 12 yards, a catch, 2 yards. And then weeks 4 versus Philly, 6 catches, 17 yards, 4 catches, 29 yards. So White, in between the tackles, I don't think he's a good running back. But catching the football out of the backfield, he's a running back that we saw a few years ago amongst the league leaders in receptions out of the backfield. So like I said, if Bucky Irvin misses extended time and Rachaad White's out there in your fantasy leagues, he's definitely going to help in PPR leagues, a minimum catching the football out of the backfield. But like I said, he's only available right now in 60% of fantasy leagues. Next running back, Kenneth Gainwell of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Was Kenneth Gainwell, what a game it was for him filling in for Jaylen Warren. I know the Steelers team, they're on bye now, and obviously it might have been just a 1-week fill-in where they didn't want to push Warren and give him a 2 weeks rest. So we know Kenneth Gainwell coming into the year was the number 2 running back and saw some opportunities. Week 2 versus Seattle, 5 carries, 20 yards, 3 catches, 16 yards. Week 3 at the Pats, 4 carries, 16 yards, a touchdown, a catch, 10 yards. And then week 4, the breakout game in Dublin versus the Minnesota Vikings, 19 carries, 99 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 6 catches, 35 yards. So Gainwell, he's always been a decent veteran in his NFL career, but to see him go out there versus a good Minnesota Viking defense that we know they've had some good games already this season and put on a clinic, and a lot of patience in that backfield with Gainwell, where people thought Caleb Johnson will be a threat, but even as the backup, Johnson only had 6 carries. So Kenneth Gainwell, I think he's going to earn more work in this offense, even with Jaylen Warren coming back. And Gainwell, the more physical back at times as well. With Warren, obviously a better receiver out of the backfield. But like I said, Kenneth Gainwell showed he could be a 3-down back, and he ran with patience and poise in that week 4 victory. The next running back, Chris Rodriguez of the Washington Commanders. Rodriguez, he's been getting carries. He had a 48-yard gain. That was most of his rushing yards, where the other carries were 6 carries for 11 yards for Rodriguez. But he's out there in tons of fantasy leagues right now in 86%. And ever since, obviously, Austin Eckler went down with the Achilles. Week 3, his first action of the year versus Vegas, 11 carries, 39 yards. And week 4 at Atlanta, like I said, the 7 carries, 59 yards. No, it's not an ideal committee. Krosky Merritt, they got Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols. Even though McNichols in the 2 games since the injury to Eckler, he's only had 6 carries, so I don't think he's really a factor back there, is McNichols. And pretty much it's going to be Rodriguez and Krosky Merritt. So right now, like I said, he's out there in tons of leagues, 86%. He's going to get touches. And Krosky Merritt, he's not really a receiving back out of the backfield, where Rodriguez has been working on that in the offseason a lot. And maybe that could be a thing for him. And also adding Jaden Daniels back to the lineup, even though it's a tougher matchup at the Chargers, I think could open up the running game a little bit more. So Rodriguez, I think, is a decent add this week. The next add, Kendre Miller of the New Orleans Saints. And Miller, he's starting to eat into that workload a little bit of Alvin Kamara. And Alvin Kamara definitely could be a trade candidate in the next few weeks at the NFL trade deadline, where we know the same team's going nowhere, 0-4 in the season. Miller, they were high on him a couple years, drafting him in the second round of the NFL draft a few years ago, but off the field injuries and other stuff have plagued him over the last couple seasons. But now the last 2 weeks, the workload's been going up for Miller, and he's going out there and putting up good yards per carry and making an impact on the game. Week 3 at Seattle, 7 carries, 27 yards, 2 catches, 9 yards. And then last week at Buffalo, 11 carries, 65 yards, and he found the end zone. So Kendre Miller, a guy that's been on the radar running off over the last couple seasons, but like I said, can never put it together. And now him and Alvin Kamara were almost in a 50-50 split. Alvin Kamara is still the better running back, but like I said, by the deadline, it wouldn't be surprising to me at all if Kamara is shipped out of town in New Orleans, and they're just going to go with younger guys, and Miller obviously being that young running back they'll have in the backfield. Next back, Justice Hill of the Baltimore Ravens. Game of Kansas City was garbage time, and he had a big run down the sidelines for 71 yards in garbage time in the fourth quarter was Hill. But Hill, we know, coming in already, he was the passing downs back for this Baltimore Raven team. Derrick Henry definitely has lost a step, it looks like, a little bit this season. Easier to tackle, it seems like, as well, and the fumbles have been an issue. So the last couple weeks, Hill's starting to get things going a little bit. Week 3 versus Detroit, 3 carries, 45 yards. And week 4, Kansas City, 3 carries, 76 yards. I know, like I said, the 71-yard touchdown, and added 5 catches, 41 yards with a touchdown. So he's a good back catching the football out of the backfield. Like I said, that passing downs role is locked in for him. I know week 5 should be a better matchup, especially if Lamar's going to play versus Houston, where it could be a Derrick Henry show. But he'll definitely a guy to keep an eye on. And anytime someone goes out there and puts up 28.7 fantasy points in PPR leagues, I'm going to mention him on the wire. Maybe it could be, obviously, a one-week wonder with a big game and a fluky garbage time touchdown, but you never know. And like I said, Henry hasn't played well this season. Next running back, Amari DiMercado of the Arizona Cardinals. So DiMercado, most of that game, he wasn't a factor, where Trey Benson was getting majority of the touches, but DiMercado made a big play towards the end to get him back in it for the Arizona Cardinals in the Week 4 loss versus Seattle. 2 carries, 8 yards, 2 catches, 13 yards on a touchdown. So DiMercado, we've seen his receiving prowess in a small sample size last season with the Arizona Cardinals. I think he could be a better receiver than Trey Benson, where he could work into that third down role as DiMercado. So like I said, he had a big play, found the end zone in that game, even though he only had 4 touches in that one. He needs definitely more of a deeper league ad out there in 96% of fantasy leagues, but definitely someone to keep an eye on. And the final running back, Rashard Smith of the Kansas City Chiefs, another back that's been on the radar a little bit and on these lists over the last couple weeks, and his workload's starting to get up a little bit more as Rashard Smith. Pretty much Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco haven't shown much. I know Hunt had 13 carries in last week's ball game, and Pacheco found the end zone, but Rashard Smith, easily the best receiver out of those backs out of the backfield. He was a receiver in college, and he got the most work he got all season in the Week 4 victory versus the Ravens. 4 carries, 9 yards, and added 3 catches, 27 yards. Obviously, he still has to jump Hunt and Pacheco, or at least one of them, to have a major role in this offense, but definitely someone to keep an eye on. Like I said, already the best receiver out of the backfield, where he could play that Jarrett McKinnon role, where he played there many seasons for Kansas City as a receiving back. And also as well, even offensive coordinator Matt Nagy said he wants to get him more touches. So right now, Rashard Smith might be eating into a Pacheco or Kareem Hunt's workload. And like I said, in PPR deeper leagues, definitely an ad this week out there in 98% of fantasy leagues. Before, let's say he has a breakout game like a Woody Marks did, and you missed out on him on the wire. So that's a few running backs I looked at off the wire for Week 5 of the fantasy football season.